Racist cop attacks black woman but stops when her Secret Service team arrives. A routine evening for a black woman takes an unexpected and disturbing turn when a prejudiced police officer decides to intervene. But what he doesn't know is that this woman isn't just another passerby, she's someone with a powerful and highly trained background. What unfolds next is both shocking and deeply revealing, challenging the very dynamics of authority and bias in a tense confrontation. If you are excited about this story, please like, subscribe to the channel and leave in the comments where are you watching from. Meet Maya Carter, an experienced operative for the United States Secret Service. On what was supposed to be a peaceful night off, Maya stopped at a nearly empty gas station to refuel and take a breather from her high-pressure work. The scene was quiet, just a lone cashier inside and a few parked cars, but Maya's instincts told her to stay vigilant. Unbeknownst to her, Officer Paul Grayson, a local patrol cop frustrated by a dull shift, was watching from his car. His biases and assumptions about Maya's presence set the stage for an intense and unjust encounter. What starts as a routine stop quickly escalates, revealing the deep-rooted prejudices of authority figures and the unexpected strength of those they underestimate. This story is about more than one confrontation, it's about the clash of arrogance, professionalism, and the truth. Maya Carter, despite her casual hoodie and jeans, carried herself with the deliberate precision of someone accustomed to danger. Her training as a Secret Service operative was second nature, sharpening her senses and making her hyper-aware of her surroundings. As she stepped out of her car and began pumping gas, her eyes scanned the dimly lit station, a flicker of movement in the cashier's reflection, the faint hum of a patrol car engine nearby, the slight shift in shadows across the lot. Something felt off, though she didn't turn her head. Maya's instincts told her she was being watched. From the corner of her eye, she noticed the patrol car parked awkwardly a short distance away, its occupant barely visible behind the glare of the streetlights. Her every movement, grabbing a bottle of water and a pack of gum from the car's side pocket, was purposeful but measured. Maya wasn't here to start trouble, but she knew trouble sometimes found her anyway. Inside the patrol car, Officer Paul Grayson tapped his fingers impatiently against the steering wheel. The gas station had been uneventful all evening, and his shift had crawled by with nothing more than routine traffic stops. His frustration grew as he noticed Maya, her poised demeanor setting off alarm bells in his mind. She didn't look nervous or hurried, something about her composure irritated him. A young black woman, alone at night, driving a car far too nice for someone who, in his opinion, didn't fit the profile. Suspicion clouded his judgment as he debated whether to approach. Grayson didn't realize how much his own biases colored his thoughts. To him, Maya was an anomaly, and anomalies were meant to be questioned. He convinced himself that it was his duty to investigate, though deep down, it wasn't about the law, it was about control. With a sigh, he turned on his headlights and slowly pulled his patrol car closer to the pump where Maya stood. His heart raced, not from fear but from the thrill of asserting his authority in a situation he imagined he had control over. Maya was screwing the gas cap back on when she saw the patrol car pull up beside her. The officer inside stepped out deliberately, his posture rigid, his boots crunching on the asphalt. He adjusted his belt, his hand lingering too close to his holster. Maya kept her movements calm, placing her receipt in her pocket and preparing to leave. But she knew he was coming straight for her. "Evening, ma'am," Grayson said, his voice low but firm, as he stopped a few feet from her. "Evening, officer," Maya replied, meeting his gaze with a calm expression. Mind telling me what you're doing here at this hour? His tone carried a faint edge. Like he was probing for trouble. Getting gas. Maya said simply. Holding up her keys. Anything else I can help you with? Grayson's eyes narrowed. Scanning her car and her casual attire. Where you headed? Home. Maya answered. Keeping her tone neutral but firm. The silence that followed was heavy. Maya could feel the weight of his stare. His need to establish dominance. She didn't flinch. Didn't look away. I'm going to need to see your ID. Grayson finally said. Folding his arms. Maya hesitated not because she couldn't comply. But because she understood the power dynamics at play. She reached for her wallet slowly. Making sure her movements were clear. Is there a reason for this? Officer? Am I being detained? Grayson's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to being questioned. Just routine. Ma'am. Routine. Maya repeated. Handing over her ID. Sure. As he inspected her ID. Maya watched him carefully. She could tell he was looking for a reason. Any reason. To escalate. She stood her ground. Her expression unyielding but calm. Grayson's frustration grew with every second of her composure. Wait here, he said. Turning toward his patrol car. Maya watched him go. Her instincts telling her this was far from over. She exhaled softly. Her mind already calculating her next move. Whatever was coming. She was ready for it. Officer Paul Grayson sat in his patrol car. Gripping the steering wheel tightly as he watched Maya Carter drive away from the gas station. She hadn't done anything illegal. And there was no valid reason to follow her. But his gut told him otherwise. That gut feeling, fueled more by his biases than any concrete evidence, convinced him that she was hiding something. She was too calm. Grayson muttered under his breath. Turning on his headlights and pulling onto the road. He maintained a careful distance. His patrol car's lights dimmed slightly to avoid drawing attention. In the driver's seat of her vehicle, Maya quickly noticed the faint glow of headlights in her rearview mirror. She knew it wasn't a coincidence. Grayson's patrol car, now a persistent presence behind her, signaled that the encounter at the gas station wasn't over. Maya's grip on the steering wheel tightened slightly. Her mind racing through her options. She could pull over. Confront him. And hope to de-escalate the situation. Or she could continue driving and let him make the first move. Knowing that it would likely confirm her suspicions about his intentions. For now, she chose the latter. Her professional instincts taking over. She kept her speed steady. Careful not to make any moves that might provoke him. Yet, every nerve in her body was on high alert. Ready for whatever came next. The empty stretch of highway felt suffocating as Grayson closed the distance between their cars. His erratic driving, occasionally speeding up and then falling back, hinted at his growing impatience. He turned off his headlights briefly. Then flicked them back on. A tactic that felt more like intimidation than surveillance. Maya's sharp eyes caught every detail. She could sense his growing agitation. He's not following protocol, she muttered to herself. Her voice calm but edged with frustration. It wasn't her first time dealing with someone like Grayson. Someone who allowed personal biases to cloud professional judgment. She glanced at her phone, considering whether to call in backup. But she dismissed the thought for now. She wanted to handle this on her terms. Instead, she focused on predicting his next move. Grayson, meanwhile, was spiraling further into his own narrative. Why is she heading out here, he thought. eyeing the rural road stretching before them. His grip on the steering wheel tightened. The uneventful night had left him restless. And this pursuit felt like the break in monotony he needed. Suddenly, Grayson activated his lights and siren, signaling for her to pull over. Maya's jaw tightened. "Here we go," she muttered, easing her car toward the shoulder of the road. She kept her movements deliberate, her training guiding her every step. As her car came to a stop, she took a deep breath, preparing for the encounter. Through her rear-view mirror, she saw Grayson step out of his patrol car, his stride aggressive, his hand again lingering near his holster. His body language wasn't just authoritative, it was confrontational. Maya's mind worked quickly, analyzing every possibility. If Grayson tried to escalate, she needed to stay calm and document everything. If he attempted to intimidate her, she would let him dig his own hole deeper. She lowered her window halfway as he approached. "License and registration." Grayson barked, his tone harsh and impatient. Maya handed over the documents, her face unreadable. "Is there a reason for this stop, officer?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Grayson didn't answer immediately. Instead, his eyes darted to the black case sitting in her passenger seat. Its sleek, unmarked design catching his attention. His suspicion grew, and his tone sharpened. "What's in the case?" Maya met his gaze steadily. "Nothing you need to worry about, officer," she replied. Her composed demeanor only irritated Grayson further. But as he stood there, debating his next move, he had no idea that the situation was already spiraling beyond his control and that Maya was several steps ahead of him. Maya Carter kept her hands firmly on the steering wheel, her posture calm and composed as Officer Grayson approached her car. The red and blue strobe of his patrol car lights cast flickering shadows across the dark road, heightening the tense atmosphere. She glanced at him through the side mirror, taking in his aggressive stride and the way his hand hovered near his holster. Grayson's face was set in a scowl as he reached her window. "License and registration," he demanded, his tone sharp. Maya handed over the documents without a word, her expression neutral. "Is there a reason for this stop, officer?" she asked evenly. Grayson ignored her question, glancing over her car. His eyes landed on the black case sitting on the passenger seat, its sleek, unmarked design immediately catching his attention. "What's in the case?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion. Maya raised an eyebrow but remained calm. "Nothing that concerns you." His jaw tightened at her response. "I'll decide what concerns me," he shot back. The tension between them thickened as Grayson leaned in closer, trying to assert his authority. Maya didn't flinch, her calm demeanor only fueling his frustration. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered, his hand resting fully on his holster now. Maya's movements were deliberate and slow as she unbuckled her seatbelt and stepped out of the car, keeping her hands visible. Grayson gestured toward the back of the vehicle. "Hands on the trunk." She complied, her posture calm but alert. Grayson began patting her down, his actions unnecessarily rough. Maya's eyes remained forward, her breathing steady, though her patience was wearing thin. As he moved to the car, Grayson reached for the black case. The faint beep of an alarm emitted from the case as he lifted it, causing Maya to smile faintly. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," she warned, her voice quiet but firm. Grayson ignored her, his curiosity outweighing his better judgment. "You don't get to tell me what to do," he snapped. Before Grayson could pry further, The rumble of engines echoed through the night. Maya's gaze shifted to the horizon as 4 black SUVs sped into view, their headlights cutting through the darkness. Grayson froze, his grip on the case faltering. The vehicles formed a tight semicircle around the scene, blocking Grayson's patrol car. Doors swung open, and several figures in black suits stepped out, their movements precise and purposeful. The lead agent, a tall man with a commanding presence, walked toward them, his expression unreadable. "Step away from the case," the agent said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Grayson stiffened. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded, his voice rising. The agent ignored the question, glancing at Maya. "Agent Carter. Are you all right?" Maya nodded. "I'm fine. He's just curious." The subtle jab didn't go unnoticed by Grayson, who bristled. "This is my jurisdiction," he barked. "You can't just show up here and—" "You're interfering with a federal operation," the agent interrupted, his tone razor-sharp. "That case contains classified materials, and your actions have already been reported." Grayson's face flushed with anger and confusion. "Classified? Federal operation? Who is she?" The agent's gaze hardened as he stepped closer. "Agent Maya Carter is a member of the United States Secret Service, currently operating under direct orders from a classified federal directive. The case you're holding contains sensitive materials related to national security." Grayson's grip on the case loosened as the weight of the situation hit him. He glanced between Maya, the agent, and the other operatives, realizing just how out of his depth he was. "You're making a mistake," he muttered, his voice quieter now, almost desperate. "No. Officer Grayson," the agent replied coldly. "You already made the mistake. You profiled an innocent citizen, escalated without cause, and now you're interfering in a matter far beyond your authority." Grayson's shoulders slumped slightly, the adrenaline draining from his body. He looked at Maya, her calm demeanor unshaken despite everything. "I didn't know," he began, but his voice trailed off. Maya tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "That's the problem, officer. You didn't know. And you didn't bother to find out." The agent gestured to the case, and another operative stepped forward to retrieve it from Grayson's trembling hands. The agent's voice turned colder as he added, "Your actions tonight will be reviewed at the highest level. I strongly suggest you reflect on your decisions before they cost you more than your pride." As the agents returned to their SUVs, Grayson stood frozen, his authority completely unraveled. The realization of his mistake and the consequences that might follow began to sink in. The tension in the air was palpable as the black SUVs prepared to leave, their engines rumbling like a warning growl. But just as the situation seemed to de-escalate, a distant roar of engines cut through the silence. Maya Carter's gaze snapped to the horizon, where headlights approached rapidly. The convoy of 3 rugged vehicles screeched to a halt a short distance away. Doors slammed open, and a group of armed men stepped out, their movements deliberate and threatening. They were dressed in mismatched tactical gear, their faces partially obscured by masks. Each carried weapons that glinted ominously under the gas station's flickering lights. The lead intruder, a tall man with a commanding presence, stepped forward. "Evening," he called out, his voice unnervingly calm but laced with menace. "Looks like we've got a little gathering here." The agents instantly moved into a defensive formation, their hands hovering near concealed weapons. Maya stepped forward, placing herself between the agents and Officer Grayson. who stood frozen, his hand gripping his holstered weapon but unsure what to do. "You're not supposed to be here," Maya said firmly, her voice steady but carrying an edge of warning. The intruder smirked, his confidence unwavering. "Funny. I was about to say the same thing. Why don't you hand over the case? And we'll leave quietly?" "Not happening," Maya replied, her eyes narrowing. The intruders began to fan out, their movements coordinated and deliberate. Maya's jaw tightened as she glanced at the lead agent. "Get ready," she said under her breath. "This is going to get messy." The first shot rang out like a thunderclap, and chaos erupted. The intruders opened fire, their bullets ricocheting off the armored SUVs and sending sparks flying into the air. The agents responded with precision, taking cover behind the vehicles and returning fire with calculated aim. Maya moved swiftly, her training kicking in as she assessed the battlefield. She darted low, using the shadows to her advantage, her eyes scanning for openings. Spotting one of the intruders advancing on the flank, she raised her sidearm and fired a single, well-placed shot that sent him sprawling to the ground. Grayson, meanwhile, found himself caught in the crossfire. His earlier bravado evaporated as he scrambled for cover behind his patrol car. The gunfire was deafening, each shot a stark reminder of how far out of his depth he was. His hands trembled as he fumbled to unholster his weapon, but his fear made him hesitate. "Grayson," Maya barked, her voice cutting through the cacophony. "Stay down. You're a liability out here." Her words jolted him into action, and he ducked lower, realizing he was more of a spectator than a participant in the unfolding chaos. Maya pressed forward, her movements fluid and purposeful. She reached the lead intruder, who was barking orders to his team. He turned to face her, his rifle raised. But she was faster. With a calculated sweep of her leg, she disarmed him, following up with a precise strike that left him incapacitated. As the skirmish wore on, the agents systematically neutralized the remaining threats. One by one, the intruders were subdued, their weapons confiscated, and their movements restricted. When the last shot was fired, a tense silence fell over the scene. Maya stood in the center of the chaos, her weapon lowered but her posture alert, scanning for any lingering threats. Grayson finally emerged from behind his patrol car, his face pale and his hands still trembling. He looked around at the aftermath, the scattered weapons, the subdued intruders, and the calm efficiency of the agents, and realized just how out of place he was. Maya turned to him, her expression unreadable. "This is why you don't jump to conclusions," she said quietly, holstering her weapon. Grayson didn't respond. For once, he had nothing to say. The once quiet gas station was now a scene of controlled chaos. The subdued intruders sat on the ground, their hands zip-tied behind their backs, surrounded by the black-suited agents who remained vigilant, scanning the area for any lingering threats. Their weapons were confiscated, neatly piled under the watchful eye of an agent standing guard. Maya Carter stood near the lead agent, her composure unshaken despite the intensity of the skirmish. Her sharp gaze moved between the intruders and Officer Grayson, who was leaning against his patrol car, his face pale and his hands still trembling. The weight of the evening hung heavily on Grayson. He had started this confrontation confident in his authority, only to watch it unravel into a situation he couldn't control or comprehend. The sight of the agents methodically handling the aftermath, their calm efficiency in stark contrast to his earlier aggression, deepened his sense of humiliation. Grayson's thoughts spiraled as he replayed the events of the night. He had made assumptions about Maya, judged her based on nothing more than his biases, and allowed those prejudices to escalate the situation. Now, as he stood amidst a scene far beyond his understanding, he couldn't ignore the glaring truth: his actions had not only endangered himself but had nearly jeopardized a high-stakes federal operation. The lead agent approached Maya with a nod. "The scene is secure. Command has been notified. We'll take it from here." Maya returned the nod before turning her attention to Grayson. The agents began loading the subdued intruders into the SUVs, the hum of engines filling the silence as they prepared to leave. Maya walked toward Grayson, her steps deliberate but unthreatening. He looked up at her, his expression a mix of embarrassment and confusion. "You had no idea who I was," Maya began, her voice calm yet firm. "But you didn't bother to find out. Instead, you let your assumptions guide you. You saw someone who didn't fit your idea of who belongs here. And you made me a target." Grayson opened his mouth to respond but found no words. Maya continued, her tone softening slightly. "Do you understand what could have happened tonight? You didn't just put my life at risk, you endangered your own and nearly derailed an operation critical to national security. All because you couldn't see past your prejudice." Her words stung, but there was no malice in her tone. It was a simple, cutting truth. Maya straightened her posture, her expression unreadable. "Think about that the next time you're in a situation like this. Because not everyone will have the patience or professionalism to clean up your mess." With that, she turned and walked away, her calm composure unshaken. Grayson stood motionless, watching Maya join the other agents as they prepared to leave. Her words echoed in his mind, each one a painful reminder of his failure. He had always seen himself as a protector of the law, someone who maintained order and kept his community safe. But tonight had shattered that image. The authority he had wielded so confidently now felt like a hollow shell, undermined by his own ignorance and prejudice. For the first time, Grayson questioned the man he had become. Had his biases clouded his judgment before? Had there been other situations where his assumptions had led to unnecessary harm? As the black SUVs disappeared into the night, Grayson's chest tightened with a mix of guilt and regret. Yet, amidst the discomfort, there was also a flicker of something new, the desire to change. He exhaled deeply and climbed back into his patrol car. The silence inside felt heavy, pressing down on him as he gripped the steering wheel. He didn't know where this realization would lead, but he understood one thing: the way he had handled this night could never happen again. With that thought, Grayson started the engine and pulled onto the road, determined to confront his flaws and find a better path forward. This story is a stark reminder of the consequences of prejudice and unchecked authority. It highlights how assumptions, no matter how small, can escalate into dangerous situations, and how professionalism and composure can make all the difference. Maya Carter's strength and poise exemplify what it means to rise above challenges, even in the face of injustice and danger. But this isn't just her story, it's a reflection of a larger issue that affects us all. What would you do if you were in Maya's shoes? How would you handle being unfairly judged and placed in harm's way? Let us know in the comments. Your voice matters. If you found this story thought-provoking, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more impactful and inspiring stories like this one. And remember, together we can shed light on the issues that truly matter.